I'm Michelle Scaife. I'm the Extension Agent with Better Living for Texans here in Montgomery County, part of Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service. And today, we're going to rethink our drink. Did you know that the most common source of added sugars in the average American's diet is sugar-sweetened beverages? It's things that we're drinking every day. And a typical 12-ounce can of a sugar-sweetened soda contains about 150 calories and about 10 teaspoons of sugar. If we drink 2 cans every day for 30 days, by the end of that month, we will have consumed the equivalent of 5 pounds of sugar. That's quite a bit of sugar. Did you know that you need to run 100 miles in order to burn off those calories? That's an awful lot of running too. So let's think about that. The American Heart Association recommends that our daily intake only be about 6 teaspoons of sugar for the average American person. So how are we going to figure that out? Well, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to look at that food label and see where the sugars are coming from and how many sugars are in the things that we're consuming. So typically the food label is on the back of the beverage bottle, the back of the label or the back of the can, and I have one blown up here that we can look at. So when we look here at the food label, what we want to do is look down here where we see the word total sugars, and that tells us the naturally occurring sugars in that item as well as any added sugars that might be there. So that's the total of both of those. Things such as dairy products and fruit juices have naturally occurring sugar in them, but where we're the most concerned with is added sugars. So right underneath of total sugars, you'll find the phrase added sugars, and usually a number and a percent beside that. And a good rule to follow to help us reduce our sugary beverage intake is when we see that total sugars, look over here. It's highlighted in blue on my food label, but at the far side, you're gonna see a percent. And we have what we call the 5 and 20 rule, which states that the closer that percent is to the number 5 to 5%, then we consider that a low sugar item. So that would be something that would be not too bad to consume on a regular basis. But the closer that that percent is to 20%, we would consider that a high sugar beverage. So that might be something that we have on occasion or consider eliminating from our diet, at least for a while. So in addition to the food label, other things that we can do to reduce our sugar intake, especially where beverages are concerned, is to consider drinking other things. Of course, water is one of the best things that we can consume throughout the day because it hydrates our system. It has no calories, no added sugar, no added salt. It's simply water, and it comes right out of the sink. So there's no need to worry about purchasing it or going to the vending machine for it. But most vending machines do have water available, and a lot of places have water fountains or places that you can get water to drink. So water is the #1 best choice to stay hydrated, especially during the hot summer days. We could also consider drinking non-sugar sweetened beverages such as teas, or we could look at flavored waters that have no added sugar or sodium. We could look at low-fat milk products. It's going to have a little naturally occurring sugar, but not as high as those that have added sugars in them. You could also drink naturally unsweetened fruit juice. Those are some great ways to get things going. But sometimes we just want a little something else, a little something cold and refreshing to get us through the day. So today, I'm going to show you how to make one of my favorite triple berry fruit smoothies. So fruit smoothies are a wonderful resource to keep us hydrated, to satisfy our sweet cravings, and to give us a little bit of nutrition as we go throughout the day. Smoothies can be drank in the morning for breakfast as a breakfast replacement. It could be a snack in the afternoon or just a nice dessert after you've had a good meal. So before we ever get started in the kitchen, we want to do a few things. So when we first get started, the first thing we want to do is kind of clean up our workspace, right? So move a few things out of the way, put stuff away that's on the counter that might get into the way of what you're working on. So have a nice clean area, and then we want to go wash our hands. And I'm going to do that right now. So when we're washing our hands, we want to get a good bout of soap. We want to make sure that we are washing not only the palms, but the backs of our hands up into the wrist area. We want to wash between our fingers and then make sure that we're getting in there and getting some of those fingernails clean. Those are areas where bacteria and dirt and germs tend to hide. Once we've lathered up really well, we want to go ahead and rinse them under running water. And then proceed to dry them really nicely before we get started. Once our hands are clean, then we can start setting out all of the items that we need. Most of us use a recipe when we're cooking in the kitchen, and that's a really good thing to have on hand. So our recipe for today is going to look just like this. It's called our triple berry smoothie, and you'll notice that it tells us what we need and what we're going to do, and then it gives us the nutrition analysis for what we're making today. So today, like I said, we're making a triple berry smoothie. And what it says we need are some measuring cups, which I have right here. Make sure your utensils are nice and clean before you get started. And we also need a blender, and I've got my blender here. A few things to think about when it comes to blenders is be very careful when using blenders or any appliance, because this one particularly has blades inside, so we don't ever want to stick our hands down inside of the base here of the blender. There's sharp items, you can cut your fingers, not a good thing. So be careful about using the blender here. We also want to make sure that when our blender is on the counter, it's pushed back away from the edge of the counter, and that we want to plug it in right when we're ready to use it. There we go. So we have our base ready to go, we have our blender clean, our measuring cups are out, and just like we washed our hands, we want to make sure that our fruits and vegetables are clean before we use them. So I like to place mine in a colander. You can see there's holes on the bottom here. Some people call this a strainer. We would place our fruits or vegetables in here, turn the water on, and let that cool running water rinse over those fruits and vegetables and get them nice and clean before we cook them. Now, my fruits are frozen today, so we're not going to need to wash those. If your fruits and vegetables are already frozen, then they were cleaned before they were frozen, and that's fine. All right, we're ready to go. It said that we needed those, the measuring cups and blender are here. Now let's look at the ingredients that we're using today. Today we're using some really popular summer fruits, things that we're gonna see in the grocery store quite a lot. You can buy them fresh, you can buy them frozen, and if you buy fresh ones, you can even freeze them yourself to have them on hand for later. So we have strawberries, delicious summer fruits, very high in antioxidants, high in fiber, a natural water source, and they do have naturally occurring fruit in them. Very refreshing. Mine are frozen. We also have some blueberries. Again, a really good summer fruit. We're gonna see these in the store most of the time. They're also available already frozen for you. Another good source of fiber, antioxidants, and nutrition. We're also gonna use a banana. Mine has a few spots on it. I find that bananas that kind of have already started to spot up a little bit are often softer and sweeter. And so if we're using it in a smoothie, this is a really good condition to have your banana in. And if it's starting to get spotty and you don't think you can use it yet, you can take the peel off, place it in a resealable container, and freeze it for later. That makes your smoothie that much creamier and that much colder. So we have a banana. We also need some fat-free yogurt. I have here just some plain fat-free unflavored yogurt, and then we're going to have a little bit of milk. Non-fat milk would be recommended to keep our fat intake down as well. Now that we have everything that we need, we're going to get started. Into this basin, we want to make sure before you start that the blade is already in place, and mine is. Now we're going to start measuring those ingredients. So we want to take our measuring cups, and when we're measuring, we want to scoop into the item, so like the berries, we're going to scoop down in there, and we want it to pretty much be leveled off here. If we want the recipe to turn out right, we really do want to use correct measurements. So I'm going to start with some strawberries, and these are already sliced up into pieces for us. So as you can see, fairly level. There's just a little bit sticking out the top. And drop that in. Then we're going to put in some blueberries. I don't know about you, but blueberries, especially frozen blueberries, are one of my favorite things. So we have frozen blueberries. Then we're going to peel that banana, and we're going to use the whole banana. So just take the peel off. No need really to chop it or anything. Just kind of drop it in there. Easy, easy. All right, now to get on to the rest of these products. We're going to use a ½ cup of fat-free yogurt. So this is a 1 cup serving. You can buy small containers of yogurt like this, or you can buy a really large container of yogurt so that you have plenty of it on hand. And I have my ½ cup measuring cup here. So we're going to fill it up carefully. Sometimes when you open a container of yogurt, it'll have a little bit of watery liquid on the top, and that's just separation. Yogurt has what's called whey in it, and as that yogurt settles and sits at the store, sometimes that whey is going to separate out. So you can either go ahead and stir it up and stir it back into the yogurt, and that's completely fine. Or if you'd rather, you can pour that whey off and run it down the sink if that's just something you're not comfortable with. No problem, right? All right, so there's our whey. Now we're going to put in 1 cup of, 1 cup. We're going to use ½ cup of yogurt and 1 cup of milk. Remember, non-fat milk is recommended. Milk and yogurt are both going to have some good calcium, some good vitamin D, some healthy sources of protein for us. And if we're using the low-fat versions, we've got the best options. We have everything we need. Let's do one final check before we get started. So our recipe calls for strawberries, blueberries, banana, yogurt, and milk. Since my fruit is frozen, I'm not going to use ice. But if my fruits or vegetables had been fresh, I might want to put about ½ cup of ice cubes in there to give me that slushy cold result. But since our fruit's frozen, we don't need to do that. Place the lid on securely. This particular model has a little safety mechanism here. So if I tried to put this on the blender right now, the buttons wouldn't work because it's a safety feature. So make sure that you have all of the clicks and locks and safety features in place before you get started. Of course, make sure you have permission at home to use an appliance before using any of these items. Let's give it a blend. So we're gonna set the blender onto the base and snap it in place. We're going to turn it on carefully, making sure that our cords are not hanging off the side and that we are not too close to the edge, because sometimes vibrating appliances can fall off of the countertop. We're turning it on. We're going to start low to make sure that everything gets blending, and then we're going to kind of bump it up to high to finish it off. Once the blades have stopped moving and we've turned the appliance off, it's a good idea to unplug it and then carefully remove the pitcher. All right, now we have a cold, refreshing smoothie to drink. Now, if you had done that and you look in here and you find out that maybe some of the pieces of fruit didn't blend enough, you have some chunks, you could go back and run it through the blender one more time. So just put the lid back on, turn it back on, and let it go a few more moments until things smooth out for you. Some of you might like it chunky, and that's completely fine. So what do we do if we're gonna leave the house with our smoothie? Well, it would be a good idea to transport a already made smoothie in an insulated cup, something that will keep it nice and cold while you travel, or in a thermos. But did you know, if you have leftover smoothie and you didn't finish all of it, smoothies make great homemade popsicles. You can make smoothie pops by simply putting the leftover smoothie into a paper cup, a popsicle mold, or a paper cup, and putting a popsicle stick in the center and putting it in the freezer. And then it's ready and waiting for you anytime, and you can head out the door with a great, cool, already made smoothie pop. So I hope that you will try this recipe, that you rethink your drinks and maybe start looking at those food labels, and that you have a wonderful summer. Stay hydrated.